Hi, it's Michael Guesty. Welcome to Fishing the Edge. Now, every time we're out and about fishing, we're always talking about electronics and how crucial it is to use them to find fish, to locate bait, and then use that to your advantage to catch fish at the end of the day. And that's what we're out here and we're trying to do. So I thought today what we might have a look at is some of the basics, some things like range, sensitivity, gain, some of those really basic things. So I know a lot of people go out fishing and they set their sounder up and they never touch it because they're too afraid that they might might end up with a worse picture. And certainly when you're motoring along fast, you need to pull the sensitivity up, and then when you slow down, you need to pull that back again. So don't be afraid to use those little buttons and bits and pieces to try and get a better picture. In the sounder I've got here, which is the Lowrance HDS 10, there's a fantastic menu in there. If I jump into the menu, down to settings, and then across there, and we go down to this thing called fishing mode, and at the moment it's in general use. But if we get into here, you can see we've got general use, shallow water, fresh water, deep water, slow trolling, fast trolling, clear water, and my favourite, ice fishing. Can't say I do too much ice fishing in this part of the world, but just goes to show you've got some different ones that you can use. And I do definitely use the deep water one when I'm out wide jigging for kingfish, and you've seen us on Fishing the Edge jigging for kingfish. That deep water setting works really well. The shallow water setting, when you're in quite shallow water, which might only be like we are today in this sort of 10 metres at the moment, or 6 to 7 metres. Slow trolling, if we're trolling live baits around for marlin, and faster trolling for Spanish mackerel and some of the more sort of speedy things, trolling for marlin as well. And don't be afraid to get in and have a look, and you might not like that setting. So if we go to the freshwater one here now, push enter, and then we bail out, it actually changes the colour palette, as you can see there now, and gives you a different look at bait and other bits and pieces, and you can see that. So there's a great myriad of bits and pieces there. And if we go back down again, jump into there, and if we go to the shallow water setting, and then press enter and bail out of that one, you don't need anywhere near as much sensitivity. So what we would do there is we'd exit out of here, jump onto the sensitivity button, and then we can start to detune that sensitivity. And there we go, and we're back to a similar style picture that we had before. The scroll speed is actually up a little bit further too, and that's another thing. Now, scroll speed is the speed that the picture passes through your depth sounder there, so we can actually change that as well. So that's another thing that we'll have a look at in a minute. But sensitivity, I guess, is the key button. With the soft palette on this HDS 10, we've got a soft palette key here now, so we can just push that soft palette key and adjust sensitivity, colour line, range, the frequency, whether we go 200 or 83 kilohertz, 200 or 50 kilohertz for very deep water, and then back to 200 again. We can split the screen by just sort of scrolling up and down. So there's a myriad of things, but one thing I just can't stress enough is don't be afraid to have a little bit of a play around with your sounder. You've seen us offshore lots of times, and we're always marking fish like kingfish, cobia, Samson fish, amberjacks. Now they have big swim bladders. They're a great fish. They're a pelagic fish. They fight hard and they do mark very well on the sounder. What you do need to do is, when you're using your depth sounder and you start catching some kingfish, or you're catching amberjacks or Samson fish, they will all mark slightly differently. They might have a slightly different colour. On your sounder, they'll have a different sort of pixelation, so the shape might even be different. So next time when you're catching some kingfish, have a look back at your sounder and go, oh, right, that's what kingfish look like. And then have a look at your sounder if you're catching some cobia, if you're lucky enough to get amongst some cobia. Oh, right, that's what cobia mark like. And then snapper look totally different to all of those guys. You know, they'll be smaller. Generally, they might be a blue pixelation instead of the red colour. And they mark differently again. It's so important if you want to target snapper or pearl perch or any of those other fish, that you really reflect the colour palette, the shape that you're looking at, back to the fish that you're trying to target. A couple of key things when you're fitting your sounder up and your transducer, for that fact, is make sure your transducer's in the right spot. Check your manufacturer's recommendations to make sure it's on the right side the way the propeller spins. Make sure it's got a tiny bit of angle forward so that it's got nice clean water flowing over it, that it's clear of the hull or any other things that are protruding from the hull, deck wash pickups and things such as that. Make sure that your transducer cable and your power supply to your sounder runs away from your other power cables to keep the interference out of it, and you're halfway there. Now let's check out how we use the sounder to target some different species. Oh, well, I'm hooked up again. Things are happening. Important not to lift that rod or high stick that rod too high. Just nice, short little lifts. Well, while the fish is not pulling, don't pull back at the fish, obviously. Once you've got him coming, nice little short lifts. Wind that line back on. Oh, Barney's yelling at me in the background. Every single drop so far is a double hookup. But it's all about that jig selection, and today, that big long 400 gram Nagamasa jig is the way to go. Go on, old mate. If we have a look here, we're in about 6 feet of water, and where the cursor is there now, that's the top of the cockleweed. So you can see all these little hills and hollows in between. That's where the brim is going to be sitting. We've got our little hard body lure here, our camion. He's going to dive down to about the top of the weed, and that's what we want him to do. So he's swimming along, if you can imagine, down along there, and he's touching the tops of the weed, and that's going to draw one of these brim out that's hanging around these columns of cockleweed and come in and eat your lure. Oh mate, that's a nice fish. Yeah, that's a good fish, mate. And he just climbed on that little hard-bodied lure there. And you see as that comes up, you can see the structure we're fishing around is the towers of these cockle beds. So that's the cockle bed weed coming up there with the brim. We'll get him in the net.
Thank you very much, sir.
And that is a great fish. And that's what we're talking about right there. That's a cockle. Where's the cockle hanging off the cockle bed? And those towers of weed, they're stemming up from the bottom, and we're working our little hard-bodied camions, our little Smith camions, through those cockle beds. That's a great fish, mate.
Nice little brim.
He's a cracker.
Lovely.
And
there, you can see that.
yeah, I think anybody, whether you're in a brim comp, you're a weekend fisherman, or having some fun like we are today, you're going to be quite happy with that style of fish. It's that little camion. So he's only diving down probably about between 1/2 metre and 600 deep.
Yep.
And he's just touching the top of those columns of cockleweed. And then as he goes through, he brushes past, and these fellas are sitting in the shadows, certainly of those cockle beds, and they're looking for a feed. And that's a very nice, healthy brim, probably about 700 grams, I guess, somewhere around about there, 750 grams.
32 centimetres.
Very nice fish indeed. Now, electronics is the way to go for any type of fishing, but check this out. This is Lowrance's structure scan. You can see the sounder picture here, the side. Look at the definition of that tree. It's just unbelievable. And you can see a bass sitting in there, or a perch. That's the shape of the tree. That's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's where technology's at. You've got down scan, side scan. But that just shows you how good the electronics have become now, and that is just a great tool, especially fishing in these impoundments. You can drive over a tree, look down and go, oh yeah, there's 5 bass there, or come up on another tree, no bass, don't bother fishing. Next one, no bass. Next one, there's the fish in the tree. Get your spinnerbait or your little hard-bodied lure or your little camion, work it down through there, and a good chance of catching a fish. Oh, this is great fun. The Minn Kota is perfect for this. It's really, really quiet here this afternoon. The only noise is Barney and I hooking up, and you got him on? Yeah, we got him on. He's quite an aggressive little fish, that one. There he is in the net. The Minn Kota is perfect. You can just sneak around, put your cast on. The points are always a great place for little hard bodies, these little points where you come along, rocky points that come out. You always just sort of get that anticipation, yeah, I think I'll get a bite there. And sometimes it all comes to plan, like this little fella here. Where is he, mate? Another little impoundment bass. Trying to find his big brother, but the light's moving down, and hopefully the bigger fish will come out and play. Well, there's no point having all this expensive electronics on your boat if you're not prepared to experiment and learn. So pretty simple. Next time you're out and about and you're blasting along and you think, oh, I'll just put up with that sounder picture, not quite right. Play around with your sensitivity. You can play around with your scroll speed. Remember, if the faster you have your scroll speed, the more elongated the fish and the other things that you're marking your sounder will become. So you can slow that scroll speed down. You might need to pick it up a little bit in other areas. But be prepared to have a play around, and you'll get much, much better results with your electronics. This is Guesty here for Fishing the Edge. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to go and try and catch a few fish while I'm at it. See you next time.